This is weekly live show episode number 11, and the topic today is man versus wild. Now, probably thinking it's a bit of a strange topic, but I actually find so much inspiration from the animals around me nonstop. Now, I lost my dog last year, and I was just saying to someone just the other day how I miss that interaction that you can have with an animal that you don't get with people. And I also get that animals can teach us so much if we're willing to watch, observe, and see how they interact in the world. Now, as you know, they don't use words, so they use other ways of communicating. And we have this ability too, except that our brains have taken over. So, and even just today, I was getting something out of the fridge and the next door neighbour's cat, and I actually had if you don't know, if you haven't heard of Access Consciousness, this is where the tools that I use and inspired by and I use in my business are the tools of Access Consciousness. And just today I was listening to a class with Gary and Dane, and as I'm opening the fridge, grabbing something out of there to eat, I actually got a bit of a startle because the cat from next door was sitting at the back door meowing at me to get in. And it's like, well, what energy was the cat tapping into to want to come in at that time? And what do they know and what are they aware of? And I know my dog used to be by my side a lot, or be, when I was doing processes and sessions on people, when she was a puppy, she would sit outside the door of my clients' rooms. And when we moved to another house, she would actually sit on top of the floorboards above where I was running energy on my clients. And I see pictures all the time of people posting on Facebook of their animals just hanging out when they're running energy. So they are aware of something and they don't have a judgment of it. So I get, what if we could let go of our judgments? What if we could push our walls and barriers down just like animals do? They don't have a wall or barrier up to anything. They function from awareness. They function from what they are aware of in that moment and what is possible and what action they need to take in that moment. So if they get that there's an energy that's required, or they like, that energy is contributing to them, then they will go and be and sit where you are. So what can we learn about animals? I mean, animals don't have a point of view. They don't wake up in the morning and go, I'm not singing today. My feathers don't look right. Oh, you look better than me sitting on the wire, so therefore I'm not going to hang out with you today. They don't do any of that stuff. They just wake up and they sing. And they just be in the world, and they contribute to everything around them dynamically. And if you're willing to receive that, how much more can that expand your world? Animals don't function from thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and we do. So we're often, overwhelmed and controlled by our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, whereas they'll just be present in the moment and aware of what's required. So, for example, when the tsunami hit, they didn't go and look at the water coming. They didn't try and figure out what was going on. They just knew that they had to get out of danger, so they started to go to higher ground. So animals have an awareness far beyond what we're willing to acknowledge that we could have too. Hi Simone, how you going? Nice to see you. And animals are so telepathic too. They'll communicate energetically with you and put pictures and thoughts in your head. So I know when I had my dog, I knew when her water was empty because she would tell me. I would suddenly be sitting there and go, I need to fill up her water. So I would go out and sure enough, the water would be empty. And it was just something that I would become aware of. It wasn't cognitive. I didn't think about it. It was placed in my head. It was placed in my awareness. And every time I would follow that, sure enough, there would be something that would require my attention in regards to her. One evening, she'd had tick paralysis, and she and I just had her treated for the tick paralysis. I'd had her checked over for ticks, and unfortunately, when I brought her back from Sydney to Melbourne, there was still one attached, and her health was deteriorating. And in the middle of the night, I'd fallen asleep, and she was actually calling me mum in my dreams. So I could hear her yelling out, "Mum, mum, mum," and it woke me up. And I got up out of bed, and there she was on the stairs, violently ill, and had no feeling in her legs, so she couldn't move. Now, people might say, that's crazy. How could that happen? Well, it does. This is how they communicate with you. So they don't have the words to tell you, so they'll put it in a way that they can express to you, explain to you. Just the other day, my son was, and I have to teach my kids this stuff too, like my son was stomping on a bee, and I went outside and I said, "Hey buddy, like, why did you kill that bee?" And he said to me, "Mummy, I was scared it was going to bite me." And I said, "Well, I haven't been bitten by a bee since I was a little kid, and when I was little I actually laid on one, and I think another time it bit me on the hand because I was trying to catch one. And from that time, I learnt that if I spoke gently to the animals around me and were in communion with them and didn't show fear, that they wouldn't attack me and they wouldn't bite me." And I was explaining to my son, the bees are really important to us. They pollinate, and they they change the environment. They're important for our environment. So you don't kill them. You just need to be in communion with them. And he's like, okay. So how much fear have we instilled in ourselves and our children about the animals around us, including magpies? Like, I've never, ever been swooped by a magpie, because I also have the point of view with the magpies. Like, if you're in communion with them, and if you go out and you speak with them, whether that be energetically or out loud, I'll often speak out loud. I'm like a crazy person on my front porch saying, "Hi, magpies." I don't get swooped. So it's about that communion that you've got to be willing to be, to receive everything from them. So, and animals don't judge. And how many of us judge? How many of us judge ourselves? How many of us judge other people? They don't care if you're fair-skinned or dark-skinned. They don't care if you're fat or thin. They're just willing to be present with the energy you are being in that moment. So what would it be like if you could, what information can you receive from the animals that you've never been willing to acknowledge? Like, what capacity do you have with animals that you've never been willing to acknowledge? And what energy, space, and consciousness can you be to be as aware as the animals with total ease? So imagine if you were as aware as the animal kingdom. How much more could that expand your life? Hi, Elizabeth. How are you going? And what information can you receive about you in regards to animals that you've never been willing to acknowledge? So what are they communicating with you? What are they trying to tell you that you're not being willing to listen? And what if you could expand your magical capacities that the animals have, that we've taken over with our brains? So our brains have kicked in, it's taken over, and yes, the brain has a great function. And what else is available that we've actually let go of because we've let our brains be the dominant or dominate us? So I will leave you with that. Those 3 questions. What information can you receive from animals that you've never been willing to acknowledge? And what energy, space, and consciousness can you be to be as aware as the animals with total ease? And what information can you receive about you in regards to animals that you've never been willing to acknowledge? Now, if you're listening to this in the future and you haven't listened to this on the Gypsy of Consciousness group, I invite you to come and play in this group, where I do a weekly live show each week on a different topic. And you will also find me on my YouTube channel. And I hope to listen and hear from you very soon. Thanks for listening today. Bye for now.